Welcome to Better Way Training. Today's training is how to read a tape measure. To be able to read a tape measure, you're going to have a little bit of an understanding of how to add and subtract fractions. Because a tape measure, it's broke down into fractions. It's broke down into half inch, quarter inch, eighth inch, and 1/16 of an inch. And to be able to add them, we're going to have to know a few of the basics. So, this might be pretty trivial to most of you, but I'm going to try to walk you through a little bit of it and just bear with me, and I think it will open up your eyes, or if you don't know how to do it, it's going to help you out. And plus, I'm going to give some tips. If you hang with me, I'm going to show you about some things about a tape measure that you might not know, what all these symbols are, what that little diamond means right here. What this, the red means right here. So anyway, I'm going to show you some tips about a tape measure. But first, you really have to know how to do fractions. So a fraction, what is a fraction? It's a little bit less than a whole. A whole number is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. So let's just take this circle right here, and we're going to call that circle a whole. So that's a whole, and that's going to be a 1. We're going to call that a 1. Well, if we divide that whole in half, we have 2 equal halves, which means that that is a fraction of this whole. Now, if we just look at 1/2, we have 1 of 2. So we got 1 of 2, which is 1/2. Okay, now if we look at how we write that, and then we look at what we call, 1/2, the top number is a numerator, the bottom number is a denominator. The denominator is what it takes to make the whole. The numerator is how many parts that we have of the fractional value of one whole. So to be able to add fractions to another fraction, we got to be able to sit there and to add or subtract. The denominator needs to be common. And what I mean by needs to be common is this number right here. They all have to be 2, they all have to be 3, they all have to be 4. They all got to be common with each other. So however many ways we break down a whole, it has to be the same to be able to add it. Okay, so right here, 1/2 plus 1/2. So 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 2 halves. 1 plus 1 equals 2. So, and if you look at it another way, 2 divided by 2, what do you get? You get 1 whole. So now that is the simplest form of breaking down how a fraction is, but we need to know we got to have a common denominator to be able to add or subtract. So now if we break down 1 whole per circle, I'm using a piece of pie, so that it's pretty easy. Okay, a piece of pie, we're going to break it down into 4 parts. So 4 parts equals a whole. Now, if we just take one of those parts, which is 1/4, 1 of 1, 2, 3, 4 of a whole. So 1/4 of a whole. Now, if we go ahead and we were talking about halves before, we're looking at 1/4. It's also the same thing as 1/2 of 1/2. So 1/2 plus 1/4 equals 2 quarters, plus 1/4 equals 3 quarters. So if we have 1/2 plus 1/4, we got 1, 2, 3, and we got 3 quarters. But see, the 1/2 has to be broke down to where our common denominators are equal, or it becomes common. So we had to make that 2 the same as 4, or we had to make a common between them. So another pictorial drawing right here. We've got 1/2, and I've gone ahead and I've shaded in this half of a pie. So 1/2 plus a pie that's broke down into 4 plus 1/4 shaded in equals, now I've made it into 4 pieces instead of just a half. So there's actually 2 quarters, which is the same as 1/2 plus 1/4. 2 plus 1 over 4, which is how many parts is our denominator, equals 3/4. Okay, now the tape measure. Okay, the good thing about a tape measure is tape measures, they're broke down into 1/2, 1/4, 1/8, and 1/16 of an inch. Now, if you notice, everything is either multiplied by 2 or divided by 2, whichever way you go. If you go, if you're going down into the smaller increments, you're going to multiply. So 1/2 times 2 equals 1/4. 1/4 divided by 2 gives you 1/2. Same thing as 1/16 divided by 2 gives you 1/8, or 1/8 times 2 gives you 1/16 of an inch. So here is a way that a tape measure is broke down. You got 2 parts, which is 1/2 of an inch. 1/2 of an inch, 2/2 of an inch equals 1 inch. 1/4 of an inch, 2/4 of an inch, 3/4 of an inch, 4/4 of an inch equals 1 inch. And then we got it so on. Then there's 1/8 of an inch, and then 8/8 of an inch equals 1 inch. Then we got it to where there's 16. 1/16 of an inch, 2, 3, 4, 5, 16ths of an inch, etc. 16 over 16 equals 1. So if we look here again, okay, now we're going to look at 1/4 of an inch. So we got it broke down into 4. We got 1/4. And that equals 2/8 equals 4/16. So 1/4, if we've got a 1/4 plus a certain thing that the denominator is 1/8 of an inch, what have we got to do to change that 1/4 to the 1/8? We're going to have to multiply it by 2. Okay, if we have 1/4 of an inch and we have another measurement that is 1/16 of an inch, to convert this 1/4 into 16ths, we're going to have to multiply it by 4, because 4 into 16 equals 16. 4 times 4 equals 16, and that'll give us common denominator. So this right here equals 4/16 of an inch. Now, tape measure, here is just 1 inch, from 0 to 1 inch. And if you look at it, the first breakdown, and it's the longest line, well, actually the longest line is your inches. Okay, the next longest line is a 1/2 inch. So it's broke down into half of 1 inch. Then the next breakdown is half of a half, which is 1/4. Half of a half is 3/4. So half between 1 inch is 3/4. Then the next breakdown is, since we've already broke it down into 1/4, is we're going to break down 1/4 into a half, which is 1/8 of an inch. Then 1/8 of an inch, we're breaking it down into 1/16. So for an easy, I just gone ahead and I've drawn this out to give you an example of how we can go ahead and make our common denominators. Okay, if we got a 1/16 of an inch and we want to add it to 1/8 of an inch, how many 16ths is 1/8? It's 2/16. So if we want to add 1/16 to 1/8, we have to convert the 1/8 to a 16th. So how many 16ths is 1/8? It's 1 and 2. So 2/16. Okay, and then we got 16th plus another 16th, 2/16, and 3/16. Okay, now if we got 3/16 and we got a 1/4 of an inch, how many since this is a 16th, how many 16ths is a 1/4 of an inch? Well, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4/16. So if we got 3/16 plus 4/16, that's going to give us 7/16. When you get the common denominator, which is the bottom number, you just add the numerator, and then that gives you your number. So this goes ahead and breaks it all down. We got 1/16, 1/8, 3/16, 1/4, which 1/4 is 2/8, 4/16, and we jump to 5/16. Then we go to 3/8, which 3/8 can also be broke down into 6/16. Then we got 7/16 and a 1/2 inch. See, it can be broke down to 4s, 4/8, or 8/16, and so on. So this is a breakdown of how simple, and everything is just multiples or divisibles by 2. So 1/4 equals 1/2 of a half. 1/8 equals 1/2 of a 1/4. 1/16 is 1/2 of an 1/8. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you some tips of a tape measure and what a tape measure, the symbols are, and then there's some actual little figures on it and everything else that will help you to use it and know the tips of the trade. So I'm going to try to go ahead and turn this down right here so that you can actually see the tape measure. Okay, now the first thing on a tape measure that I want to show is let me get this in a little closer here. Okay, now if you look right here, and I hope this is coming in good and clear. Okay, the very end of this tape measure moves. So if we're measuring from here, okay, and I'm going to try to put a point right here. Okay, see, there's 1 inch right there. Now I'm pulling against that. Now if I go ahead and I push something against this, instead of measuring, pulling against it, I'm going pushing to it. Then I get an equal 1 inch. So that's what this is for right here, folks. This little bit of movement right here is to either pull for a measurement or to push against something to get a measurement so that you get an accurate measurement. And actually what you're doing is you're measuring the width of this right here. I mean, it's either adding or subtracting that to give you your first inch. Okay, now this tape measure, which by the way, this is a Milwaukee 25 foot. Now, one thing I'll show you is that most tape measures within the first 3 or 4 inches are going to tell you how many feet total the tape measure is. Now, one of the great things about this tape measure is not only does it have, you know, your 1 inch or 2 inch or 3 inch or 4 inch, and then it goes ahead and it shows you your longest line right here, which is divided in half. But if you go down directly below it, it shows that you've got a half right here. Now, half of a half, see the next longest line right here? That's 1/4. Then it shows you in between a half and a quarter is 3/8. It doesn't have it broke down into the 16ths, but if you look right here, there's a line in between each one of these. So if it's a half of an eighth, then that's a 16th. So there's 16th, 2 16ths, 3 16ths, 4, 5, etc. Okay, now another thing I want to show you about a tape measure is it's broke down not only in the inches, you know, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, but when you get to 1 foot, it's got an arrow right here, and it still shows you the inch, but it has 1 foot. Now, if you look right here, it shows 1 foot, 1 inch. So 1 foot, 1 inch equals 13 inches. 1 foot, 3 inches equals 15 inches. Now, the next thing I want to show you about that can be very helpful is most walls are broke down and they're put on 16-inch centers, or your studs are 16-inch centers. So if you notice, you got a 16 and it's got a rectangle that's red. So you got 16, you got 32, you got 48. So those are all multiples of 16. So you can sit there and then you can mark your studs out. It's already got it so that you don't have to sit there and calculate it out. You can just say, okay, there's a stud, here's a stud, here's a stud, and you know where your centers are. Now, another thing that most people don't pay attention to, but if you look right here, there's a little diamond. That little diamond, that's 19.2 inches. Or 38.4 inches. Okay, what that boils down to is code requires that your floor joist have to be, there has to be 5 floor joists for every 8 foot. Okay, and then if you divide 8 feet and you multiply, well, you get your inches of 8 feet, and you divide that, then it's going to become 19.2 inches. And that will go ahead and be your mark for the center point of your floor joist. So 19.2. A lot of people, you know, it depends on what you're going to do with your floor joist. If you're going to go ahead and you're going to put, you know, a 1-inch concrete slab and you're going to put a tile on it and everything else, a lot of people put them on 1 foot. But just a standard floor code requires 19.2 inch centers. And that's what that little diamond is. So anyway, I hope that this helps you out a little bit. And I hope you learned a little something, you know, as far as a tape measure goes. And if you like this video, and also this is actually, you know, one of the items that's in the toolkit that we're giving away when we reach 1,000 subscribers. Go ahead and subscribe, like the page, and put your email in the comments and everything, and enter in to be to a chance to win all the tools. And hopefully you learned something from this. Thank you.